Is she speaking or she's just there? That's great.
Finally met your sister.
Please stand.
Yeah, but you can sit.
You can be seated. A life well lived is a precious gift of hope and strength and grace from someone who has made our world a brighter, better place. It's filled with moments sweet and sad, with smiles and sometimes tears, with friendships formed and good times shared, and laughter through the years. A life well lived is a legacy of joy and pride and pleasure, a living, lasting memory our grateful hearts will treasure. Good afternoon. We're here today to remember, to give thanks, and to celebrate the life of Paul Frederick Hebert, who was born in Noranda, Quebec on December 12, 1938, passed away peacefully on May 19th of this year. My name is Brad Eager, and I just want to say thank you for allowing me to be a part of your time of remembering today. And on behalf of the Hebert family, I thank you for being here. I know it means so much to them at this time. Paul was 87 years old. He lived a wonderful life. He's deeply loved, and he'll be greatly missed. He was a brother, a husband, a father, a grandfather, and a beloved friend to so many. I know he was also a very special uncle, mon oncle Paul. I had the privilege of speaking with Paul's family this week, and I got to hear some of the stories of this incredibly caring, dependable, hardworking, thrill-seeking, and joyful man. A man known for his big smile and his kind eyes, and a heart for all those around him. I have no doubt that Paul... later. That's a little teaser. Well, I have no doubt that Paul loved each one of you dearly. And as we remember and we celebrate him today, I invite you to let the sadness that he's gone and the happiness of a life well lived come together. And there's a lot of emotions that come when we allow ourselves to let those things come together. I know your hearts contain a lot of grief and sadness today, but I also want to give you permission to smile and laugh. It's not inappropriate. Paul's life and these stories and these memories are worth celebrating. And knowing how Paul was always the life of the party, always the last to leave the party, he would love that everyone is here today. Paul Hebert was born and raised in Noranda, Quebec, a mining town in the north of the province. He was the youngest of four with three older sisters. And his father, Frederick Hebert, served as the mayor of Noranda for 17 years. And he was thrilled to finally have a son to carry on his family name. Paul's early years were happy and full of life. He had a faithful dog called Mickey, who would walk him to school each morning and be waiting at the gate to walk him home each afternoon. Summers were spent at the family cottage on Lac du Fault, where Paul developed a deep love for the outdoors and the water, and that's a love that would stay with him for the rest of his life. After his elementary years in Noranda, Paul went to study at Brébeuf College in Montreal for 8 years, where he earned his bachelor's degree. He was a bright and driven young man, and he continued his studies at the University of Ottawa, where he would gain not only a law degree, but also a wife. Paul and Madeline had mutual friends at university, and one evening when they were out playing broomball on the ice, Paul spotted Madeline. Now, she was the only woman in her commerce program, so you might imagine there was some considerable competition for her attention. But on May 22nd, 1963, 63 years ago yesterday, Paul happened to run into Madeline in a campus building, and he found the courage to ask her out to a fancy dinner. He was handsome. He had a Volkswagen Beetle. So she said, oui. What's a girl to do, right? They began dating, and that summer, Paul set off on a solo road trip in his VW Beetle, driving across Canada, down to California, and back across the United States. He loved the open road and the freedom of a good road trip. And it certainly wouldn't be the last one he would take. He decided he wanted to share those trips with Madeline. And so after 2 years of dating, they were married, July 17th, 1965. And they would go on to share 60 wonderful years of marriage together. Paul began his legal career at DuPont in Montreal, working as a corporate lawyer. And the young couple bought a house in Candiac, Quebec, just south of Montreal, a house that backed onto the golf course, where Paul later became a member. Paul and Madeleine started their family. They were blessed with 3 children, Chantal, Charles, and Julie. Paul and the kids would fish for lost golf balls in the ponds on the golf course. In 1980, the family moved to Oakville, which would become their home for the next 39 years. And Paul continued his career at DuPont, working there for 27 years in all, before moving into a semi-retirement at Livingston, where he worked for another 12 years, finally retiring in 2002, at the age of 64. And in retirement, Paul became a member of the Provost Club at Oakville, where he made new friends and enjoyed the camaraderie of fellow retirees. He and Madeleine traveled extensively, road trips across Canada, down to Myrtle Beach every spring for many years, adventures through Europe, and even to Australia to visit Charles and his family. And every summer, for many years, Paul and his sisters would gather at Freddie Bear Camp, his nephew Mark's cottage in New Hampshire, where he was absolutely in his element, surrounded by family and the great outdoors. As Paul entered his 70s, he was told by his doctor, "The wheels are falling off the cart." This was a phrase he adopted with characteristic good humor to describe his health challenges from that point on. And when Paul reached his 80th birthday in 2018, he was deeply content, grateful to have reached the milestone, and was at peace with the full and rich life he had lived. In 2019, Paul and Madeleine moved from Oakville to a bungalow in Burlington. The past few years, they brought their challenges with lots of trips in and out of the hospital. But as Madeleine said to me this week, they simply decided to take it one day at a time. Paul passed away peacefully this past Tuesday at Oakville, Trafalgar, at age 87. He leaves an incredible legacy of love and dedication. But I think it'll also be just some of the little things that he'll be fondly remembered for. He's a dedicated handyman, loved to build things, liked playing golf, liked watching golf. He loved skiing. He patiently taught all his kids to ski on the slopes around Ottawa and in Quebec. He loved music, and back in the day, I'm told he had a stereo with those big headphones, that you could plug in, and you could find him stretched out on the couch, the headphones on, lost in his music. Loved all sorts of music, but especially his French singers. He was a man who showed love through action, loved doing things for people. He would come home and kiss Madeleine on the forehead every single day. Rarely got angry. He was good-hearted, dependable, and full of warmth. There's so many things that make Paul, Paul. And I'm sure you even have your own memories and stories coming to mind now, or as you were looking at the photos in there. And we're going to get to hear some more of these stories and memories this afternoon. To eulogize someone means to tell the truth about them, to speak kind words over them. And so as we remember and celebrate Paul, I'd like to invite his children to come and share with us. First we'll hear from Chantal, along with her daughter Melanie, and then Julie and Charles, and finally cousin Paul will also come and share as well. So Chantal and Melanie, whenever you're ready.
So we are here to celebrate the life of my father, the legacy of cherished memories he has left for us. Some of the best memories I have of us as our sharing our passion for music. In Candiac, when we grew up, we actually couldn't go to sleep until there was André Gagnon, French-Canadian, the pianist, playing on the record player. If we were to fall asleep, that was a ritual. Music was such a big part of what we did. We had records like Nana Mouskouri, Mireille Mathieu, Joe Dassin, Charles Aznavour, all the greats, Gilbert Bécaud, who I later went to see his grave in Paris with my daughter. and I knew the context because of that. All of our French Canadian childhood singers were so important and core to who we are. And then later in life, when we moved to Oakville, eventually went to the University of Guelph, and my dad would drive me every Sunday night back to Guelph, and we would listen to our favorites back in the 80s, Whitney Houston, Anita Baker, and we would sing at the top of our lungs, off key and everything, but we just had such a love and a great time talking, singing through those special Sunday evenings. We discovered the music of Sarah Vaughan actually when my mom and dad took us to a nice bistro in Guelph, and that opened the door for Ella and Billy. We loved live music too. Going to Celine Dion concert is a great memory. I thought that my mom bought the tickets for her and my dad to go, but no, she's like, no Celine for me. So I got the pleasure of joining him. Corey Hart opening back in the 2000s. We also went to see the Three Tenors all together, which was a phenomenal event. He was always singing a song. If you know my dad, he would say the first lyrics of a few different songs, but one that always reminds me of a very special time is he would always say, "The loveliness of Paris." And do you know that just yesterday I Googled where that was from, and it's actually Tony Bennett's version of I Left My Heart in San Francisco. So thank you, Dad, for teaching as you passed away. All this special meaning of the songs that touched us. You know, there was a music for all different moods. You know, from Vivaldi's The Four Seasons, Joe Dassin, ABBA, the Gypsy Kings, K-Tel's 70s romantic ballads. And, you know, there's always now, and there's always been music in my home, in my car, in my heart, and I've passed this on to my daughter. My father's nickname was Schneider. If you don't know who that is, it was a character in the show in the 80s, One Day at a Time, which is, you know, what my parents would be quoting as his health would fail in the past few years, one day at a time. But Schneider was always helpful, loved helping everybody, not just me, my daughter, my sister, but also others around. He would help fix, build, plunge, floods in mountaintop basements. Like, he was always there to help. He would follow me through my moves in London and Mississauga and so on, and everywhere he would bring his painting ladder, and he had a swatch of all the colors of the paint. I inherited that very special ladder, and which is really precious in our garage now. He would also, you know, build things for me, you know, lots of pictures over there of him building IKEA type furniture, and he taught me to be patient, which I'm not. Be patient, read the instructions, and you can do anything. So I am now in my house, the one that fixes things, the one that builds IKEA furniture. I don't like painting, but and I've passed this on now to my daughter Melanie. At any celebration with a turkey, he was the one who would carve it. He was in charge of carving the bird, and he took this job very seriously. He had inherited Mon Charles' silver carving set, and some of you may not know, Mon Charles was a head surgeon at a Montreal hospital. His uncle, my great uncle. He was born in 1897, so this special carving set is quite seasoned. And he took great pride in every time as a ritual, sharpening with the steel. And in fact, the blade as it is now is very, very curved from the over sharpening. the best part was after, in French we call it dépasser la dinde, which is, you know, taking the turkey apart, pulling the meat, the bones for soup, so we would do that together, him and I, elbows deep, full of turkey, and we loved it. It was gross and we loved it. And he, you know, part of him wanted to be a doctor or surgeon, so he was living out his dream. So later, as he grew older, I took over the carving, not with that set, because no, chef's knife would do for me. But I was the one that would go and make everyone doggy bags after turkey dinners. Now this I have not passed on to my daughter, no. One last thing I want to share is that my dad loved taking us on experiences to try new things, like beach vacations and ski chalets and amusement parks. I remember he loved being part of the fun. And you know, we would go on Canada's Wonderland on rides that go upside down and all around and twirling. This was when we could do rides in our early teens. And he would scream at the top of his lungs, faster, faster! Like, it wasn't challenging enough, you know. We would go to Mexican restaurants, just him and I would meet on a corporate lunch date, and there'd be the spiciest salsa or sauce, and he would like taste it and go, oh, you try it. Or Japanese, he would dip his chopsticks in the wasabi, the spicy green stuff, and he'd go, and his eyes would water and go, you try it. Oh, no. Now, I love trying new experience. I love not acting my age, and I enjoy the thrill and passion of what life brings. And I've totally passed this on down to Melanie, who now brings this out of me, as she is a young 20-something.
Thank you, that was beautiful. One of my fondest memories with Grandpapa is that in the summer when my grandparents would babysit me, he would take us down to the marina just down the street over there, and he would always show me the different boats and, oh, look how big, cool, tall that one looks, and that was just so amazing, and I'm sure I'll be going back there and thinking of him. Mm-hmm. And during this time in the car, he also would always play his Elton John Greatest Hits album. So I have a very special bond with Elton John now, thank you. But yeah, although he's no longer with us in physical form, his spirit lives on with us in the memories and through the music. And we're so grateful to have lived at the same time as him. Yeah. Thank you.
Hard act to follow. Dad, also known as Polybert, Hebert, Herbert. We've heard it all over the years. Best is when he would give his name in different places, the way they would write it down. Polar bear, I got. And one that stuck was Polly Bear. And actually for years we called him Polly. That one stuck. But we called him Daddy. He didn't want to be called Papa. He didn't want to be called Daddy. We were French-Canadian children. I don't even know where we came up with Daddy. Maybe that was a French-Canadian way of saying Daddy, I'm not sure. But he was our Daddy. He taught me so many things. I will name just a few. Chantal's already gone through a lot of them. Definitely responsibility, hard work, sense of fairness, punctuality, dedication. I know it's already been brought up, but he worked at DuPont for 27 years, and I've been at Tormont for 31 years. Whoa. But like Chantal said, he also knew how to have fun, and he really instilled that in us. he never wanted to miss the party. He was the last to leave the party, and for those of you that have known me for decades, I was always the same thing. I never wanted to leave the party, and I was always closing down the party. So definitely that came through to me. He also showed us how to be silly. You'd think, corporate lawyer, all stuffy, and his upbringing was more strict, that he would be this stuffy guy, but not at all. Him and my mom, we had so much fun just being silly together. And in fact, my kids, even last week, are like, Mom, you're such a little kid. And exactly, and that's the way it should be. He also passed on more neurotic traits as well. The best is making sure that the stove is off. He would go by the stove, going to bed or leaving the house, and he would check all the elements, and he'd walk back and go off, 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 off. And I've been known to do that. Also, making sure that the front door is locked. Double checking, triple checking. I'll be lying in bed, and I'll have to be like, did I lock the door? So I'll have to go down. And in fact, this week, Charlot was, in town, and he went somewhere down the road, and he didn't have a key, so they left the front door unlocked, and I just stared at them, and they would be appalled. He liked to repeat himself over and over, especially in the later years, and ask my family, I do the same thing. But that they would say, if only you would acknowledge what I say, I wouldn't have to repeat myself. But most of all, he showed us how to love. He had a big heart. He gave the best hugs, and in fact, we created our own hug. It was called a scratch-a-back hug. So he loved to get his back scratched. So we would just sit there in the hall and scratch each other's back. Those were my favorite. These are all memories that we will all cherish. Sorry, I just saw my friend Cheris in the... Sorry. Cherish. Anyways, I want to thank all of you. I know we've already said it, but thanks to all of you to come here. We've gotten so much support, even those that can't be here, but those that came from near, from really far. Your support has meant so much and has really helped us over the last few weeks. It's been tough, but we know we're not alone, and it's really meant a lot to us, so thank you. Lastly, I want to thank our amazing mom. It's been a tough 7 years for her. She's been a rock star looking after my dad, taking him to all his appointments, organizing all his appointments. That was quite a challenging, and all his medications, and in and out of the hospital. It was a lot, but she never once complained. She made his last years the best that they could be, regardless of his health. As you heard, he loved going on car trips, so she became his chauffeur. They would go to the Tim Hortons drive-thru, get him a large iced cappuccino and 2 small plain Timbits, and they would just drive around the countryside. And she would take him to the lake just to look out at nature, and that was his happy place. So, merci ma belle maman.
All right, I could talk about my dad for a month straight, but I'm going to try to keep it brief. My dad was a legend. He was the best guy around. His laugh was infectious, and I'm pretty sure he was someone's favorite grandpapa, someone's favorite mon oncle Paul, someone's favorite, favorite dad. He was a funny man. My dad, when I was a little boy in Candiac, in Montreal, just outside of Montreal. We used to love to play hockey together. And I'd saddle up, put all this hockey gear on. He'd be like, slapping pucks at me and stuff like that. And he used to do something that I always laughed at, and I still don't know why he did, but he used to stick handle the puck very, back and forth, quickly. And I'd be like sitting there going, like killing myself. And he kept doing it. And now I'm analyzing this. It wasn't about the game. It was about companionship. It was beautiful. My dad was a disciplinarian, but, he was all right with me. Sorry, Chantal, you were the first. So we used to take trips down to Florida, Myrtle Beach or whatever, and he'd be driving. He's going 100 kilometers an hour. He has his elbow out. Me and Chantal and Julie were in the back with our yes and no coloring books. And then, I don't know if you remember this, but he'd be driving, and the back of his elbow had this little fat patch. And I remember squeezing it really hard, going, "Hey, Dad, do you feel this?" And he's like, "No, I can't feel a thing." And I was like, "Hey, Dad, do you feel this?" And he's like, "No, not at all." And I was like, still to this day, I don't know why he didn't feel it. Anyway, so, there's only so much entertainment that these books can get you. And so here we are in the back. My sisters are beside me, and I'm just like, I have ADHD at the time, but I was probably not diagnosed. And I'm just pulling hair, and Chantal and Julie are flying off the walls. This is before seatbelts, right? And so my dad's driving, and he's like, "Knock it off, Alexa." And I'd be like, "Yeah, whatever, Dad." And he steam's coming out of his ears type of thing. And then the arm would turn into a bat, and he'd be like, he wouldn't stop, but and I'd be ducking and go underneath his seat. Oh my God. Funny now, but it worked, My dad was, he was a smart man, as you know. He was a DuPont lawyer for, almost 3 decades, and, much smarter than a man who walks up and down catwalks in Europe. Anyway, so, my mom, like I said, my dad was a smart man, but he wasn't always right. And, there's a story that Chantal and G probably don't even know. So there's Mom and Dad visited me about 20 years ago in Sydney, Australia, and my dad goes, "I think I'm going to rent a car." And I was like, I was like, "Dad, are you sure about that?" Because in Australia, everything's backwards. Not just the people, but everything's backward. It's like driving in London, right? So. And I was like, "You sure about that?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll be fine." Anyway, so we go to the car dealership, and we rent the car, and I was like, "Dad, follow me." So I'm driving, and I see through my rear view mirror, Dad's like, I'm here, and Dad's behind me, and then all of a sudden he's about 1.5 meters, he thinks he's in Canada, and he's about 1.5 meters this way, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going holy, I can't believe this. I'm like, anyway. And so 200 meters from the rental car company, I put my indicator on, we turn right, and Mom gets the full experience. So the front of the left front tire, he goes over the curb, Mom goes what, like a full recoil, right? And so, the axle's all bent, the tire's flat, and I went, hold on, I'm getting parched here. So, yeah, he gets out of the car and he goes, what the, well, actually, he gets out of the car, I get out of the car, Mom's in the corner, going, oh, and he's like, what the hell's going on here? Who would put a curb there? I can't believe this, And I was I didn't want to get into it, and I was biting my lip, and I'm yeah, I know, that's ridiculous, Dad, and still to this day, 20 years later, he, that was the story he told everyone, and, today I will say, Dad, the curb belongs there, you just don't know how to drive it. Yeah, Dad and I were, yeah, in the 90s when I lived in Oakville, when we, lived in Oakville, he built this deck, and, Saturday afternoons, Sunday afternoons, like, we used to love, in Australia, it's called having a yarn. It's having a yarn or just chit-chatting, And half the stories he told me, it was probably complete lies, but anyway. And he said, I'm smoking a cigarette, drinking a beer, he's doing the same, it was great. And then one day, I'll never forget this, he looks at me, he's like, wait, kalla, and that means in English, hurry up, chug it. And it's like a full beer. And so I'm like, if your dad's going to tell you to do something, you do it, right? So I take my beer, I slam it down, throw my cigarette, right? And I'm like walking to the car, like slightly buzzed. And I just remember at the time, and I was just like, wow, that's so cool. Like, Dad telling me to chug a beer. Like, it's like a university friend. I was just like, I don't know. And he probably did that because he probably knew that I would appreciate it. So, but I leave you with this little story. Dad was full of love. So I was in Burlington. I was getting ready to leave. I have all my luggage. I was going back to Sydney, and I had all my luggage there at the front there. And then there's Mom and I are doing the usual, like, let's not look into each other's eyes or else we're gonna bawl, that kind of thing. And Dad is like, he wasn't well at the time, and he's like got his walker. Takes him like 5 minutes to get to me, and then he goes, he opens his arms up and he goes, "Shal, I love you." And if I do have a mic, but it was a drop the mic moment and just leave. It was like you've read a great book, you shut it, you put it back, and you're like, wow, like that completed me. So if you love someone and you haven't said I love you in a while, maybe tonight is the time to do so. Dad, I'll see you on the flip side.
Cousin Paul.
I am Cousin Paul. Paul LeClaire. My mother, who is 93 in here, and she's here with her sister, Madeline, who is just about 90. She loved her brother so dearly, she named me after him. And I couldn't have had a better namesake. She wanted me to share a story, because on the way up I was able to talk about my Uncle Paul, her brother. And in 1949, he was about 10 years old. And in Noranda, where they lived, they would have a baker and a milkman. They would deliver their wares every day, and the baker came in, and he would let himself in the back door, and he'd put on the stove a loaf of bread. And on one occasion, they discovered there was this hole in the end of the bread, and a little note in it. A little note was in the bread. And the note, he pulled the note out, and he goes, "It wasn't a mouse. It was me, Paul." A great story to set the tone for his playful life. My brother and I, in Blaine, we were up at Taggart Bay, which is, I don't know how familiar you are with Canada, since I'm not here, I don't know which of you knows the geography. It's about an hour from Noranda, where he grew up, and we had a fishing trip, the three of us. And the way it worked is, like in the morning, you'd get your boats assigned. There were little fishing boats, so there'd be two to a boat. One day, Uncle Paul drew the short straw, so we were out. My brother and I were in one boat. He'd never let me drive, so I was in the bow. I'm 30, my brother's 40, Uncle Paul is about 59, maybe 60. We were celebrating somebody else's 50th, I think, John Brasser. Or was it Blaine's? Yeah, okay, you're allowed to shout out. Anyway, it was kind of a rainy day, and we had ponchos on, and towards the end, you would race back because it was happy hour, and you'd have the walleye dinner that the camp would put on for you. It was a great time. And so we're pounding through, and we would separate during the day, because there was all these little bays, these little rivulets, these little hikes we could take, and we're going back, and we're motoring as fast as we can back to camp, and I look over my shoulder, and there is, and I was like, oh my goodness, and there's Uncle Paul like pounding hard because he has one in the boat, so his boat's a little bit faster than our boat. And I said, Mark, check out over there. And when Mark looked, we had the pine trees in the back, and we had the rippling of the lake. It was an overcast day. He had a poncho on, a red poncho. This poncho was back like this. It had like a cape effect to it, and he's pounding in, and he has like got his head down because he's looking at us because he's beating us to camp. He's beating us to camp, and from then on, for us American nephews and nieces, that day I got a great picture of it. I don't know where that picture is, but I got a fantastic picture. That day was born Captain Canada. It was a great time. Now, as you all know, you've alluded to it, his philosophy, his life, a kind-hearted man. One word that I haven't heard, but you'll all appreciate it when I say it. He was also a very, very humble man. He did not brag. He would joke. He would laugh at my jokes. Until today, I thought I was just the funniest guy in the room. And then I'm hearing he laughed at everybody's jokes. But that's how generous of a spirit he was, just phenomenal. And consistent with that, we dubbed his house in Oakville on Bethnal Green, I think is the Bethnal Green, the Hang Loose Hotel. And you may have seen, because he would pull it out, somebody made him a nice piece of, nice sign at the Hang Loose Hotel, because it was just that. We could come there, Becky and I would come when we were newly married. We'd come and we'd spend like little time with them. We'd be in the basement like, hey, we're going to the club. And, his kids were still in high school. Oh, too bad they couldn't come. So Becky and I, we raced downtown to Toronto for a night out on the town. We had a great time. But one of the fun things, I don't know what his vodka of choice was at the end, but Smirnoff's, because I have to tell you, the man loved a good funeral, and we would have a grand time at all of the funerals, not to mention all the weddings, but unfortunately now we have to celebrate lives this way. We come in honor, we come in to grieve. We come to mourn, but we come to celebrate his family, his caretakers, for their wonderfulness. He taught us a great deal, a wonderful, dear man, our Uncle Paul. God bless you.
Well, thank you all, each of you, for putting those words together, sharing your hearts with us. Paul will be very proud, grateful to all of you. Well, today's a day of many thoughts and many feelings. Today's the time to say thank you for what Paul meant to you and for how his life has touched yours. He loved his family and his friends deeply, and in remembering his life, there's much to be thankful for. So may we carry that thankfulness for these memories of him that we'll always have. Today's the time to say goodbye. As we mentioned, Paul had been navigating his health challenges for many years, and he faced it all with strength and positivity. And so perhaps you feel like you've been slowly sort of saying goodbye and letting go for a while now. But, no matter what, when the day comes, it's never easy. And I'm so glad that some of you got to see him and be with him these past few weeks. But I know that not everyone did, and that can be hard. We can feel like we didn't get a chance to say goodbye in the way that we would have liked, or to make sure that we told him all the things that we would have wanted him to hear. And so today is our chance to say goodbye. And we know we have to let him go and release him in our own hearts and minds. But I believe that knowing Paul's love for all of you and how much you loved and adored him, that he knew in his heart all of the things that you would have wanted him to know. I believe that. Today is a time to mourn. In speaking with Chantel and Charles and Madeline this week, we shared these great stories, and we laughed a lot too. And I felt like I got to know them a bit, and that was a real privilege for me. So thank you. But there was also a deep sadness too, as we were reflecting on what is now lost. And this is a loss. It's a difficult one. May we take that sadness that's in our hearts and grieve well, supporting one another, giving each other the grace to have good days and bad days, to laugh or to cry. This is healthy and it's necessary. And the relationship that we've lost with Paul is worth grieving. Today's a time to reflect. As we've been hearing these memories and stories of Paul's life, we begin to reflect on what life itself is. Paul's love for people, his hard work, his dedication, his positive spirit, his love for adventure, leave us a great example of a life done right. And so may we honor him by carrying on his example in our lives. Today's a time to be together, and any journey through grief requires others to walk that road with us. And that's why we're here today. But not just today, but also in the days and the weeks ahead. I hope you'll continue to come together, whether it's over the phone or around the dinner table. Keep telling these stories and keep looking at these photos. And as you do, I think you'll discover the life of Paul Hebert lives on in each of you. Finally, I think today's a time to hope. We believe that Paul is at peace. He's free from pain. He's reunited with those who've gone before him. And that this is not goodbye forever. Because his spirit lives on and we'll be with him again one day. In a few minutes, when our time here in the chapel is finished, the family invites you downstairs for a light reception. And as you go out to the right and then to the left and down the stairs. The washrooms are down there as well. And at that time, as we're leaving, we're going to be listening to a special song by Andrea Bocelli, a favorite of Paul's, called It's Time to Say Goodbye. But as we've spent these moments here today, all these memories of Paul cause us to pause and to reflect and to remember what a precious gift that life is. We're going to take a quiet moment now to honor Paul and to give thanks and to say goodbye. So let's take a quiet moment together now. Now we release the life of this dearly loved man, Paul Frederick Hebert, who's now completely at peace. And we say thank you to him for the life and the love that he shared with us. And we carry that love with us and honor his memory as we go forward from here. Do not weep for me, for I have not gone. I am the wind that shakes the mighty oak. I am the gentle rain that falls upon your face. I am the spring flower that pushes through the dark earth. I am the chuckling laughter of the mountain stream. Do not weep for me, for I have not gone. I am the memory that dwells in the hearts of those who knew me. I am the shadow that dances on the edge of your vision. I am the wild goose that flies south at autumn's call. And I shall return at summer's rising. I am the stag on the wild hill's way. I am just around the corner. Therefore, the wise weep not, but rejoice at the transformation of my being. Dear Hebert family and dear friends, may you find joy and comfort in your memories and stories. May you find support and strength in your love for one another. And may you know the depths of love that Paul had for each of you. Peace be with you, and enjoy the song.